You ever notice how quiet strength makes people pay attention? It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's just steady. Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet say the least. They've learned something most don't. That not everyone deserves front row seats to your struggle. You can love people, trust people, even walk with people, and still understand that your problems are not their assignment. Because the moment you start telling everyone your pain, you give pieces of your power away. You trade healing for sympathy. You exchange your divine process for temporary comfort. And here's the truth. People can care, but they don't have the capacity to understand the full weight of what God is teaching you in that storm. You see, pain is a private tutor. It teaches in silence. It builds in secret. And when you speak too soon, you interrupt the lesson. Because every time you tell your problem, you relive it. You make it your identity. Instead of your initiation, you start feeding the very thing you're trying to starve. That's why some people never grow. They keep rehearsing what they should be releasing. There's a difference between expressing and exposing. Expressing brings clarity, exposing drains energy. Sometimes silence is not you shutting down, it's you stepping up. It's saying, I will not hand my peace to the same world that wounded it. Because real strength doesn't announce itself, it transforms quietly, it doesn't need validation, it just becomes undeniable. And when you start walking in that kind of quiet power, people will wonder how you stayed so calm, how you didn't break when you had every reason to. They'll think it's arrogance, but it's actually alignment. You've learned that not every emotion deserves an audience. You've learned that peace is not given. It's guarded. Sometimes it's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about trusting that everything's forming. God does his best work in hidden places. He doesn't need you to narrate your pain to the world. He needs you to trust him with it. Because while you're explaining, he's already fixing. While you're venting, he's already redeeming. So stop telling people what God is still writing. Stop giving the enemy an early copy of your testimony. Not everyone deserves access to your process. Some people want to help, others just want to learn the difference. Protect your peace the way you protect your purpose. Fiercely, intentionally, unapologetically, because your strength isn't in how much you can say. It's in how much you can hold without breaking. Your silence doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. It means you're not reacting from emotion. You're responding from revelation. And that's the kind of maturity that turns pain into power, wounds into wisdom, and chaos into calm. So keep your peace private. Let your growth make the noise. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality, it's one of the deepest forms of strength a person can ever master. To be silent doesn't mean to suppress what you feel. It means you've reached a place within yourself where you no longer need the noise of validation to confirm your pain or your worth. When life presses hard against your spirit, the instinct is to speak, to release, to make others understand the storm you're walking through. But true power is found in learning to process that storm from a higher place, not a louder one. Silence gives you room to hear the lesson beneath the noise. It's in that quiet space where emotions settle, thoughts clear, and wisdom begins to form. When you choose silence, you're not ignoring your feelings. You're allowing them to teach you instead of control you. Words spoken in pain often come out as confusion, but silence allows understanding to rise from within. It's a sacred pause between reaction and revelation. Many people rush to share their pain because they believe that expression equals healing, but sometimes talking too soon drains the very energy needed to rise. Silence lets healing mature before it's exposed. It's like planting a seed. If you dig it up every day to show people its progress, it will never grow. The strength of the seed lies in its unseen growth, and the strength of your spirit lies in your unseen endurance. Silence is not suppression, it's spiritual discipline. It's learning to trust that not every emotion deserves expression, and not every problem deserves discussion. When you can sit in stillness and let your heart ache without broadcasting it, you discover a deeper kind of authority over yourself. You stop reacting from impulse and start responding from intention. You realize that peace doesn't come from being heard, it comes from being centered. The world teaches that speaking out is power, but heaven teaches that self-control is power. Silence isn't weakness. It's proof that you've outgrown the need to be understood by everyone. You've learned that not all strength roars. Some strength simply rests quietly in the assurance that even in your silence, you are growing, you are healing, and you are being shaped into something unshakable. People can't carry what they didn't create. It's a truth that sounds simple, but it cuts deep once you truly understand it. Every person has their own weight to bear, their own silent battles, private doubts, and hidden wounds. Expecting others to carry the full depth of your pain is like asking someone to breathe for you. They may care, they may listen, but they can never truly feel the pressure sitting inside your chest. What's yours to carry is meant to strengthen you, not burden them. Sometimes we forget that emotional dependence, even when it feels like connection, can slowly turn into an unseen chain. You start handing your peace to others, hoping they'll protect it, but no one can guard what they don't understand the cost of. There's a sacred responsibility in carrying your own pain. It teaches endurance, humility, and reliance on God, rather than the approval or comfort of people. When you constantly seek others to hold your burdens, you delay your own growth, because healing doesn't happen through sympathy. It happens through surrender. The people around you can support you, but they cannot save you. Their understanding will always be limited by their perspective. While your pain is shaped by experiences only you have lived, it's not cruelty that makes others unable to carry your weight. It's design. Some things are meant to drive you inward, to awaken strength you didn't know existed, to make you realize that your own spirit is more capable than you've allowed it to be. When you stop expecting others to carry what's yours, you free them and you free yourself. You stop resenting people for not showing up the way you wanted, and you stop depending on human comfort for divine lessons. People are not built to bear the full gravity of your storms. They can offer shelter for a while, but the rebuilding is your job. There's peace in that realization, the peace of knowing that you can face what's yours with dignity and still walk in love without needing rescue. Because real strength is not found in how much others understand you. It's found in how deeply you trust that you are never carrying it alone, that even when no one else can bear it, God always can. Peace requires privacy, because what is sacred cannot survive constant exposure. When you open every part of your pain to the world, you invite too many voices into a space that was meant for silence. Healing isn't a performance. It's a private encounter between your soul and your Creator. The deepest transformations often happen in the dark, unseen by anyone else. That's because peace is fragile while it's forming. It needs quiet to grow roots. You can't build calm in chaos, and you can't heal in a place that demands explanation for every tear you shed. Some things are meant to be felt, not shared. Some moments are meant to be processed, not posted. The world teaches that openness is strength, but discernment teaches that not everything deserves an audience. When you make your peace public before it's mature, you risk letting other people's opinions shape your process. Suddenly, your healing becomes a group discussion. Everyone has advice, judgment, or curiosity, but few have the compassion to truly understand. The truth is, peace dies in too much noise. It withers under the weight of attention. That's why true strength is quiet. It doesn't need to be announced to be real. Privacy isn't isolation, it's protection. It's choosing to create a sacred boundary between what you're living through and what others can access. In that space of stillness, your spirit finds room to breathe. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your pain. You simply exist with it until it starts to release its grip on you. There's beauty in choosing not to let everyone see your healing. It's not secrecy, it's stewardship. You are guarding the soil where your peace is planted. You're protecting your heart from opinions that don't belong in your process. The world can only see outcomes, but God sees the unfolding. And when the time is right, your peace will speak for itself. You won't need to prove that. You've healed. It will show in the way you no longer react to what once broke you. Peace doesn't shout. It doesn't seek applause. It simply rests quietly in the hearts of those who understand that privacy isn't hiding. It's the birthplace of true, unshakable calm. When you speak too soon, you interrupt your lesson. Every struggle carries within it a divine message, a quiet wisdom meant to shape your character before it's ever shared with the world. But when you rush to talk about it, when you turn your pain into a story before it's finished teaching you, you dilute its power. Some experiences are meant to marinate in silence. They need time to unfold, to reveal what they came to show you. The process of pain is like a seed planted deep in the soil. You can't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. Growth happens underground, unseen in stillness. When you start talking about your problem too early, you expose it to voices that can't interpret what God is doing in your life. You invite noise into a moment that was meant for revelation. Every lesson has two parts, the experience and the understanding. The experience breaks you open. The understanding rebuilds you. But if you speak during the breaking, you're trying to teach something you haven't yet learned. And what happens? You confuse your emotions for wisdom. You speak from pain instead of purpose. You offer half-truths wrapped in hurt. That's why silence during the process isn't avoidance. It's preparation. You're giving your spirit time to separate what happened to you from what's being formed in you. The moment you understand that, you stop needing to explain your storms. You realize that every delay, disappointment, or heartbreak carries a whisper of divine instruction that only becomes clear when you stop talking long enough to listen. There's a kind of power in learning to hold your peace while the lesson unfolds. It means you trust that clarity will come in its own time. It means you're strong enough to be misunderstood for a season if it means growing in truth. Because not everyone around you is meant to hear your process. Some people will judge what they can't interpret. So you stay quiet, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You let the lesson finish teaching you before you turn it into testimony. Then, when the time is right, your words will no longer come from pain, they'll come from purpose. They'll carry weight, depth, and peace, because you didn't interrupt what was meant to transform you. Validation is a poor substitute for victory, because what the world offers in sympathy can never compare to what inner growth offers in strength. When you speak about your pain to seek understanding, you may receive comfort, but comfort is not the same as healing. Validation gives you temporary relief, a brief sense of being seen, but it rarely brings lasting transformation. The truth is, when you rely on others to affirm your pain, you give them power over your peace. You begin to chase acknowledgement instead of resolution, and soon your healing becomes dependent on who listens, who agrees, and who approves. That's not victory. That's emotional dependency dressed as connection. Real victory comes when you no longer need to be understood to be at peace. It's when you stop needing applause for surviving what was meant to destroy you. Validation focuses on attention. Victory focuses on alignment. The world loves stories of struggle, but few people stay long enough to witness the quiet, disciplined work of becoming whole again. And that's why many stay trapped in cycles of repeating their pain, because every time they speak it to be validated, they reinforce the identity of the wounded rather than the identity of the healed. It feels good to be heard, but it's far more powerful to be changed. When you shift your focus from validation to victory, everything about your healing changes. You start doing the inner work in silence, not because you don't feel, but because you're not chasing reaction anymore. You realize that your journey is not a performance, it's a process. You start finding strength in your solitude, comfort in your conversations with God, and purpose in your pain. You no longer need others to tell you that you're right to feel broken. You just decide not to stay broken. That's victory. It's the moment you stop seeking proof that your suffering mattered and start living in the truth that your growth does. Victory doesn't ask for witnesses. It shows itself in peace, in composure, in quiet confidence. You stop needing to prove how hard it was, and instead, you embody how far you've come. Validation fades when people forget. Victory remains when you've transformed, and that transformation is yours alone, silent, sacred, and undeniably real. Your emotions don't always deserve an audience because not everything you feel is meant to be shared, explained, or understood by others. Feelings are powerful, but they're also fleeting. They rise like waves and fall just as quickly. When you give every emotion a platform, you give it permanence it doesn't deserve. Some emotions are simply signals, not stories. They're meant to be felt, processed, and released, not broadcast. The need to express every feeling often comes from a hidden desire to be validated, to be told that what you feel is right, fair, or justified. But emotional maturity teaches that you don't need agreement to find peace. You only need awareness. Awareness lets you acknowledge what you feel without being ruled by it. When you speak from unprocessed emotion, your words become reactions instead of reflections. You end up saying things that wound you later, revealing struggles that weren't ready to be seen, or inviting people into spaces of your soul they were never meant to enter. Some emotions require prayer, not conversation. Some require time, not talk. Silence doesn't mean you're avoiding what you feel. It means you're protecting the process of understanding it. When you take time to sit with your emotions privately, you give them room to settle. You start to separate what's true from what's temporary. You realize that feelings are valid, but they are not always accurate. Learning to feel deeply without performing your pain for others is a sign of strength. It means you trust yourself enough to hold your own heart without handing it to everyone who asks what's wrong. The more you expose your emotions, the more open they are to misunderstanding, judgment, and manipulation. People will interpret your feelings through their lens, not your truth, and that's how confusion grows. But when you keep your emotions sacred, you preserve their purpose. They guide you toward growth instead of gossip. The most peaceful people are not those who never feel, but those who know when to express and when to withhold. They understand that emotions are visitors, not rulers. Not every storm inside needs to be spoken into existence. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is feel everything, say nothing, and trust that in your quiet restraint, your soul is learning what your words could never teach. Energy flows where attention goes, and that truth alone explains why some people stay trapped in the same pain year after year. Whatever you keep focusing on, you keep feeding. Every time you speak about your problem, replay it in your mind or seek sympathy for it, you're giving it life it no longer deserves. The universe, your spirit, and even your emotions respond to focus. What you nurture grows, and what you starve fades. When your attention is consumed by your wounds, your energy can't move toward your healing. You start building your identity around what hurt you instead of who you're becoming. Your words shape your world. And the more you talk about pain, the more it becomes your story rather than just a chapter. Healing requires discipline of focus. It's not pretending the problem doesn't exist. It's choosing not to make it your home. Pain might visit, but it doesn't have to stay. The more you tell yourself, this is who I am now, the deeper you root your life in suffering. But when you begin to shift your attention toward growth, peace, and gratitude, your energy changes. You begin to attract clarity instead of chaos, opportunities instead of obstacles. The same power that kept you repeating the past can be redirected to create your future. It's not about denying emotion, it's about redirecting devotion. Your attention is a sacred offering. Wherever you give it, something begins to grow. You have to be intentional about where your mind rests. If your thoughts constantly orbit around your pain, you'll keep reliving it even when the moment is over. But when you start feeding your hope more than your hurt, your reality shifts. You begin to see light where you once saw loss. It's not magic, it's mastery. Mastery of your own focus. The people who heal deeply are not those who never felt pain, but those who refuse to let pain define their direction. So guard your attention like you guard your breath. Don't waste your energy keeping old wounds alive through repetition. Speak life, even when you're still healing. Focus on what you're becoming, not what broke you. Because the moment your attention moves from the problem to the possibility, your energy follows. And that's where transformation truly begins. Spiritual detachment is not apathy. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that peace doesn't depend on how things look, but on what you believe. It's the sacred balance between caring deeply and not being consumed by what you can't control. Many people mistake detachment for coldness, but it's actually clarity. It's the strength to stand in chaos without letting chaos stand in you. When you learn detachment, you stop reacting to every emotion, every opinion, every unexpected turn in life. You start realizing that peace is not found in fixing everything. It's found in releasing what was never yours to fix. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you love without losing yourself. It means you can show compassion without carrying the weight of other people's choices. It's understanding that your role is to contribute peace, not absorb pain. The world teaches attachment to outcomes, to approval, to control, and that attachment breeds suffering. You get tied to how things should be instead of trusting how they're meant to be. But detachment invites you to trust the divine order behind every experience. It teaches you that what leaves was never meant to stay, and what stays will never need to be forced. When you master detachment, your emotions no longer dictate your direction. You stop chasing closure from people who can't give it, and you stop fighting for peace in places that only produce conflict. You begin to understand that stillness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the quiet strength of knowing you don't have to control every storm. Some storms exist to show you what's unshakable within you. Detachment gives you perspective. It lets you observe without absorbing, engage without being entangled, and love without losing your center. There's a freedom that comes when you release the need to control outcomes. You start living from purpose instead of pressure. You stop clinging and start flowing. The more detached you become from the noise of this world, the more connected you become to your inner peace. Spiritual detachment is not running away from life. It's rising above it. It's choosing to operate from calm rather than chaos, from faith rather than fear, and from wisdom rather than reaction. It's the quiet knowing that whatever happens, you remain grounded, whole, and at peace. God listens in silence better than people do in noise. There's something sacred about the moments when words fail you, when your heart aches in ways language can't carry. In those moments, you don't need an audience. You need alignment. People often rush to explain their pain to others, hoping that understanding will ease the burden. But some things are meant to be spoken only in prayer. Human ears may hear your words, but only God understands the weight behind them. He knows the emotion you can't name, the tears you can't stop, and the thoughts you can't untangle. When you talk to people, they can sympathize. When you sit with God in silence, He heals. Silence isn't emptiness. It's an invitation for divine presence. The world teaches us to express, to vent, to make our pain known, but there's a depth that only stillness can reach when you bring your problems to God. You enter a space without judgment, without confusion, without misinterpretation. You don't have to explain or justify anything. You just have to be real. God doesn't need explanations. He needs honesty, and honesty often sounds like silence. It's the whisper in your soul that says, I trust you, even when I don't understand. In that sacred quiet, He begins to do what no conversation can do. He restores. He gives peace that surpasses understanding because it's not built on explanation. It's built on trust. There's power in choosing prayer over conversation. It means you're no longer chasing sympathy, you're seeking strength. It means you've realized that people can comfort your emotions, but only God can calm your spirit. When you stop running to others first, you give heaven the first response instead of the last resort. That's when clarity comes. That's when you stop rehearsing pain and start receiving peace, because God's silence isn't distance. It's depth. It's the place where your spirit learns to listen beyond noise. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is sit still and let your silence speak for you. God hears what you don't say. He sees what you hide. And in that unseen exchange, He turns your unspoken prayers into quiet strength, the kind of strength that doesn't need to be heard, only felt. You teach people how to treat your peace by the way you protect it. Every boundary you set, every silence you keep, every moment you choose not to engage in unnecessary chaos, it all sends a message about what you value when you constantly allow others to drain your peace, interrupt your calm, or invade your emotional space. You unintentionally tell them that your peace is negotiable. But when you start guarding it, not out of pride but out of purpose, people begin to understand that your inner calm is sacred ground. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some only come to feed off your peace because they've never learned how to find their own. You can love them, pray for them, even forgive them, but you don't have to let them sit at the center of your peace. When you stop bleeding in public, you stop attracting those who feed on pain. Energy recognizes energy. The more you speak from your wounds, the more wounded people you draw in. But the moment you begin operating from peace, you start attracting those who honor it. You show the world that you are not a dumping ground for negativity, but a vessel of calm. That's not arrogance. It's alignment. Protecting your peace is not shutting people out. It's choosing who gets to come close enough to influence your spirit. Every time you say no to drama, gossip, and emotional chaos, you're saying yes to clarity, strength, and spiritual stability. You teach people how to treat your peace by example, not explanation. You don't have to defend your boundaries. You just have to live them. Over time, people either rise to meet the standard or remove themselves from your space. That's how you know your peace is working. It filters without effort. The moment you decide that your peace is not up for discussion, you become unshakable. The storms may come, but they won't live inside you anymore. Peace is not something you wait for. It's something you enforce. It's a lifestyle, not a luxury. And when you treat it as sacred, others learn to do the same. You stop teaching people how to disturb you and start showing them what it looks like to be grounded, whole, and deeply at rest within yourself. At some point, you have to stop explaining your pain and start embodying your peace. The world doesn't need to understand your journey. It just needs to witness your transformation. Strength is not in how loud you cry, but in how quietly you rise. You don't owe anyone access to your struggle, your emotions, or your healing. That's sacred ground between you and God. The more you protect your peace, the clearer your path becomes. The quieter you become, the louder your life speaks. So walk in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you've outgrown the noise. Let your calm confuse the chaos. Let your stillness carry power. You don't need to tell people your problems to prove you're human. You need to trust that every battle you've faced has already been heard, already been seen, and already been turned into purpose by the one who walks with you. Because when you stop telling your problems and start living your peace, you become the message itself. Unshakable, untouchable, and completely free.